Chris, do we have to have a roll call on this? Okay. Are you ready? Everybody ready? I want to welcome everybody. This is Mr. Shane Johnston. He is the superintendent at Jefferson County. And I will have the first question.
Yes.
We've read your resume and we know something about you. Is there something that you would like to tell us that is not on your resume?
Well, sure. First of all, thanks for your invitation and opportunity to speak before you in Johnston County. It's an opportunity that I don't take lightly, and I value it. I know what a great work has been done here over the years with grit, and also the teachers, staff members, students, and families. So thank you. I will just tell you that, you know, what you can't put on a resume are some things like the intangibles. You know, I tend not to get out work. We're going to work hard to support our teachers, support our kids and our families. We want to be listening, attentive to parents and families, and meet the needs while at the same time following federal law, state law, local policy, and going to make sure we do all those things. One thing that's not on the resume that I wanted to share was what I did January 13th. Why are you leaving Jefferson County and those kind of things. Clearly and unashamedly, I love my board there. We have worked hard. We have built unity and consensus, and there's been a great many things accomplished. I don't like to use the word when it comes to credit, It's been a team effort, but I love that board, and over the Christmas holidays, my wife and I felt like the good Lord was going to do something with us, and I wanted to put that board in a position that they had an opportunity to choose whoever they thought would be best to continue the work that's going on. We put together a great team of supervisors and those things, so literally the morning of January 13th, I did not necessarily plan to do that day, but as the day progressed, I felt really impressed that I needed to do that. I called each board member between, 3:30 and 4:30 and said, I want y'all to know that I'm going to announce that today at 5:30. There's nothing wrong. I have copies of my evaluation the last 3 years. I think last year was 4.88 out of 5. Again, I care for these people. I work for them, I respect them, but that's not on your resume. Somebody no doubt said, hey, why are you leaving? My mother's back a little closer to here than Jefferson County. My dad passed away in 2007. She's having a few health issues, so just if I could get a little closer to help with her. And then I recently started pastoring. I've always been a bivocational pastor, but I started pastoring church 2 Sundays ago down the road here in Monroe County, which is also a little closer to Mom and those things. So I didn't know all of that at the time was going to happen and transpire, but it was because of my love for the board and wanted to put them in a good position that we did that. And the good Lord's given me a lot of opportunities. I've been on sports medicine staff in college, and I've forgotten most of all those things, but I was on the sports medicine staff. I started working at a radio station when I was in 8th grade and different things, and I look back and all of those type of opportunities I've used over the years, the experiences of life in this role as superintendent in Jefferson County, but I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity given me to be here today.
Number 2 is, what will you do to create an atmosphere in the schools that will lead to the educational excellence for all students?
I think the first thing we need to do is get to know who's the stakeholders. We need to have that input from our teachers and see where we are. You know, no one needs to come in my opinion, I'm just talking about me, not talking about any other candidate. I'm just saying I don't think you come into an organization like in charge of a life brigade and lead all sorts of change and those kind of things. I think what you first do is see where you are. I think you see what you're doing really well and continue to do that and make it better. And then I think you evaluate ways that you can strengthen and support areas that you need to continue to grow. So you evaluate where you are, and then you set expectations. I think everybody functions better when there's clear expectations. When you set the clear expectations, then you also need to prepare to be accountable and hold people accountable. And not in a negative way and not in an overbearing way, but in just simply way that you make sure that folks are meeting those expectations. And if they're not, are there resources we can give you? Is there extra support we need to provide? And those kind of things. This year we adopted a philosophy and put it in play in Jefferson County. It was called our 4 key components, our 4 cores, what we called it. And you'll hear me reference that probably throughout our time together today, but one of those was creating a culture of excellence. Let's be excellent in everything we do. In parent communication and parental involvement, if we're having an assembly at a local school level, let's make sure the parents are involved and welcome and they feel the positivity that's coming out of that school. And let's be excellent in our newsletters and what we do at central office and school level and all things. So I think it's just first evaluating where we are. and then let's just set a course together. It's not about Shane, it's not about me, it's about us all traveling together, working with the board, creating a vision, and working hard to implement that vision as we move forward, using data points along the way to make sure, instead of I feel and I think, let's go by what the data and research is showing us. While at the same time, we're charged by the state of Tennessee. We have state standards to teach, and we're going to teach those standards to the best of our ability and do our best to really put a great product in front of our citizens, because that's who ultimately is benefiting, because we are training the citizens of tomorrow for both governmental roles, school roles, medical roles, and I am big on preparing kids so they have a choice. I want them to have a choice. If they want to go to a 4-year college, that's great, but we also know too, the workforce development is a key issue that's facing us as we continue to grow CTE programs to meet the job market. Sometimes it's military service, and we're certainly grateful for those students that choose that. We just want them to be able to do what they want to do because we've provided them a high-quality education experience.
What do you consider to be the major strengths that you would bring to this position?
One, I'm visionary. I know firsthand I need folks to help me, but usually I have a vision of where we're going to go, and that comes from collaboration with a team, getting to know our academic supervisors and the different folks in your all's organizational chart, but then having a vision. Where do we want to be? This past year, we all know we've dealt with a dip in test scores, and while the state had a significant dip in test scores where we were able to stay in-person learning a good portion of the COVID year, our scores did not dip nearly as much as the state's did, but instead of just overreacting and knowing we can't fix that overnight, we've set a goal. So we had a vision. We're going to go 4 or 5 years out, and we're going to chip away at that and get to where we need to be, and then we strategically put things in place. So being visionary helps me, but then we also know we have to rally everybody into that vision. We have to sell that vision, and again, there's no agenda. I can tell you going in, if you're obviously fortunate to be selected, and that's the way that everything worked out. Here's my agenda, is to help teachers and kids be successful. That's it. I have no set agenda outside of helping this board, following your board policies in compliance with state and federal law, and helping teachers have what they need, having teachers be successful, supporting families, and listening. So visionary, and then also I would say experience. As a sitting superintendent, I'd say the last 4 years, there's a reason the good Lord doesn't tell us everything. Had He said, hey, why don't you run up there to Jefferson County and I'm going to throw a pandemic on you and a couple other things, I probably would have said, I got a pretty good gig where I can. But we do have experience, but I rely heavily because I sat around the table with our supervisors on the colleagues. I sat around and said together one day, we have, at the start of COVID, I said, we have almost 200 years of experience in education. If you added up everybody around the table, I said, we can do this. So, getting everybody on a common vision and mission, and then moving, I'm from the country a little bit, so, I say we need to all be pulling the wagon the same way, because it doesn't work well if I'm pushing and you're pulling, and the wagon doesn't go very far. So trying to unite everybody on the common good, and the common good are those young people walking in a building every day, and the common thing we have with them is those adults, their employees, and everybody matters. Our bus drivers, our cafeteria staff, our instructional assistants, our teachers, our administrators. It all takes all of them involved with parents and our communities to really turn out what I think we want to turn out.
Okay.
Are you all hearing us all right?
Mr. Johnston.
And you
Good
know we're
morning.
recording this, right? She's
Yeah.
told you, okay.
The following set of questions deal with listening skills, commitment to accessibility, and an open door policy. The first question, what evidence can you cite to show that you are a good listener?
Well, I think first of all, it's very important to understand one thing. Everybody needs to keep their ego in check. I told a new incoming superintendent that day, I just cautioned him. I said, there's millions of people live in Tennessee, and there's only 146 that, because as currently I'm, about to be not in the superintendent's, and I said, there's only going to be 145-ish of you. I said, don't let that go to your ego. So first of all, rely on people around you. I know we're right here at the shadows of the University of Tennessee, but at the same time, Bear Bryant said one time, if he is the smartest guy in the organization is in trouble. So you hire good people. You rely on their expertise, you make sure you listen to them. In my specific case, we have a district leadership team that meets every other week. We have an instructional leadership team, which is the district leadership team, then expands to some folks that are in district-wide role. And all of those people always have the green light to bring great ideas, fresh ideas, new ideas, and even corrections. All of them have been told multiple times, if you think I've come up with a crazy idea, please tell me. Because I'd rather be called crazy inside this room than when we come outside this room with that idea and then it realizes it's not going to work. So we have that DLT, the ILT, we have administrators, and oftentimes I will call them and to make sure they're involved. If there's a policy that we're looking at, the board's looking at implementing, and it's a high school policy, I involve our high school admin. How's that going to impact you? Tell me that, and I'll relay that back to the policy committee of the board, and those kind of things. If it's an elementary dress code issue or whatever, we try to keep everyone involved. In 4 years in Jefferson County, there's only been one email that I've not answered, and there was ancillary reasons for that. So I make sure folks are engaged. That we may not always agree, but I certainly can listen. I can value their opinion, and I can respect their opinion. And I think a lot of times, even at the building level, when they're building level principal, and the parent comes in with a concern, as long as they know that you truly didn't just blow them off, you listened and you were empathetic and you heard them and you listened, you may not always be able to agree on the outcome, but at least they know they were heard. And I learned that a long time ago when I was an interim assistant principal from kids. I actually learned that because there was a couple of kids in trouble in the hallway over at a high school in Middle Tennessee, and one of the other kids was upset, and that the other principal had said or done something to them. And I overheard this. The kid said, "You need to go in there and talk to Mr. Johnston." And he said, "Oh, well, he's not suspending." He said, "No, you're probably going home, but you'll know he at least listened to you and cared about you." And that just meant a lot. The kid realized that I may still have to issue the discipline that was coming in that situation, but I was going to listen to those people. So, we, through emails, technology, and those things, we try to involve a lot of people. Also had a superintendent advisory group right there before COVID. It's kind of taken a hit since then, but it was a building rep from each building that I would just email and say, "Hey, we're looking at doing this. How's that hit your building? What's the response of your kids?" It's kind of like a thermometer. How would that do? And those kind of things. So I think the only thing worse than not listening is asking questions and then ignoring. So, if you're going to ask what's your thoughts, then at least be prepared to adjust your way of thinking. But I rely on folks to help us make good choices.
Give us an example of when you've changed your mind and taken a different course of action as a result of listening to others.
Is this in school or when I went home and told my wife? No.
I think we'll stay with school. Let's stay with school.
I've got more illustrations at home. No, there's lots. It happens daily. Because as a I do know, one of my strengths, I feel like, is just casting that vision. But then I need people to refine that in. Oh, that's not going to work because of this or those type things. So at a school level, I can go back, and an example was we were departmentalizing some grades, and it was my mind to do 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And after meeting with school staff and those things, 3rd grade remained the way it was, of not being departmentalized. And it was a direct result of listening to the 3rd grade teachers who shared it with their administrative team. And then as we all worked through that together, it was not going to be best. While it might have been good on paper, and even some research you could have found said it was the best way to go, it was not going to be best for those teams. And if those 5 teachers couldn't buy in and support it, then it was going to be very difficult all year. So, and then at the district level, we recently, sometimes when we put out that draft calendar, how does that impact you? Everything looks good sitting in an office, and then when you roll it out. When I was coaching one time, I learned a valuable lesson from my assistant coach. I was 25, head coach of a team in Williamson County, and I drew a play on the board, and he never said a word. He just got up and marked out the circle and wrote in Theo. He marked out the other circle and wrote in Eric. He marked out the other circle and wrote in Jonathan. And I said, "Oh, you're right, that's not going to work." It looked good in circles, but then when you put it in the actual kids on your team, we realized that wasn't going to work. So we also, made, some schedule changes district-wide. And what I mean by that is we tried hard to move our schools towards a little consistency so they can help each other. In our school system with 12 schools, we had 2nd grade teachers that didn't even know the other 2nd grade teachers. But one of the ways we were going to do that is probably not going to be the most effective. And we came back and specifically, I had input from supervisors, and the elementary supervisor says, how about if we do it this way? And I said, let's go with that, because you're right there with them every day. So we try to listen to them and do those kind of things and make changes when they're recommended.
In your administration, what avenues are open for you to listen to the concerns of employees, students, parents, and the community? How would you plan to have time available for all involved?
There are a lot, and we also want to balance that full transparency. Probably the first 2 years in Jefferson County, who paid for my efforts of doing that was my wife. And I want to make sure I balance still being, because at the end of the day, I want it to be said I was a good daddy and a good husband as much as I was a good steward and faithful servant to the school district. I think we have lots of ways. We have emails, we have faculty meetings, we have technology that helps us, so much in the school system. I'm very active. I tend to visit schools very, very frequently and walk through. Sometimes that's even before, the first bell. That may be as buses are dropping off, just to see teachers on the way in the building. And those by the way conversations can sometimes be very enlightening. You're standing there talking and the teacher walks up and says, by the way, and those kind of things. And so I think also athletic events, school functions, when you're at those things and seeing, folks oftentimes, and sometimes you can't resolve a problem right there, but at least you can make an introduction and say, hey, I have office hours. Call me, email me, or I'll look into the issue and I'll give you a call back. Is your phone number in our system, or get the phone number, and those kind of things. So, it just is, it has to be strategic and purposeful. There also, I'm open to speaking engagements and attending civic groups and those kind of things in the community. And I know those opportunities will present themselves, but again, part of it is two things I don't know if you can tell, but I kind of like to talk, and I'm not afraid of talking, let's say it like that. I also hopefully know when to hush, but I don't mind talking to people. And I'm a people person, and one of the most tragic things I think that COVID did to everybody was it took us out of the people business a little bit. And even in our efforts to have such wonderful, safe schools, which is very, very important. School safety is of utmost importance. We want all of our kids and families to feel safe in school. We can't forget we're in a people business. And when a parent puts a child on a bus or drops them off at our sidewalk, they've entrusted us to their most prized possession. We need to take that very serious. But we can't ever forget we're in a people business. And so I think making yourself available is very, very important.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Criterion 2 has the ability to unify diverse groups and build and maintain high morale among employees. Question 1, how can you bring together a diverse, talented group of individuals to form an effective team?
I think the first thing is, again, be visible. I think if people see you and invested in the work, I think that helps them buy in. Secondly, I think we learned this through college athletics, that win, better recruits you get. So, you want to make sure that you work hard to put out a good product. And there's also intangibles. A lot of times you'll lose districts, maybe from time to time, lose teachers or something to a different neighboring group that they think something may be better there. But there's something about being in a setting where you have your community schools and all those kind of things, the community values and respects the position of teacher and administrator in the school system. And we're in a day and age to where there are some nationally that are making poor choices, that are causing that trust that's been built up over decades to be put in jeopardy. So locally, we want to make sure that we are continuing to make good choices for kids, with parents involved. So you bring those people in by evaluating what you currently have. You lean heavily on your current strengths and see what area that is. I think surveys and feedback of your current staff will help you retain who you already have. And then again, you see where you are. And then you do want to have high standards, because like I said a second ago, we're entrusting our most precious items to our school system, and that's our children. So we do want to have high standards of who works with them and those kind of things. So there's intangibles involved, but I think it really just comes back to this needs to be an exciting place, and that goes back even to that culture of excellence we had talked about previously. People see that there's a commitment to excellence in all things that you do. People want to be part of that. And I think that's attractive to other people around us.
Number 2, describe a situation related to your current job that demonstrates your ability to inspire and motivate people.
I think best example, and I may mention it again here in a little bit, but in year 1, we had Oshkosh coming to the community. And some of you may be like me, I thought, that's exciting. We got business coming to the community. They're going to be making baby clothes. And then what became clear was they're making the baby Humvee for the Army on a 26-year contract. And we're going to be doing that in Jefferson City, about 4 or 5 miles from our campus, and we didn't have a welding program. We met with our CTE director, and within the course of just a few months, we had a joint effort between the board, the county commission, who went in halvesies, as they say, and we transformed an area in our CTE building to a welding program. And it has grown so much, we really need to hire a second welding teacher, but we don't have the welding booths, but we're working on addressing that. We're partnering with TCAP. But it was fun to see the high school staff, the teachers, the community, the Chamber of Commerce, the county commission, the school board all come together and get excited about that. At the dedication, Governor Bill Lee actually joined us for that, along with several elected officials and those kind of things, because of that commitment to workforce development. So that's just one example, but I think when you have genuine care for what you're doing and you lay out that vision and it makes sense, you can logically explain, here's why I think we need to offer that, then most times people will buy in. And again, as you solicit input from other stakeholders and listen to what they say.
Number 3, cite an example of what you have done to build, maintain high morale among staff.
Morale among staff, I think, has taken a bad hit since COVID. And it's not just in schools, but it's lots of places. And some would say it's an isolated problem in certain districts. Jefferson County is no different. We've had probably a higher number of folks that could retire or eligible to retire decide to do that last year, this year. We're having about 29 or 30, and that may not sound big to some districts, but it's pretty high for Jefferson County, and that's classified and certified together. But one of the things that we've done is, one, tried to publicly let them know we value them, we love them. There's probably been some exceptions. We use a phone notification system, and when I use that notification system, I kind of talk fast, but I even have to put it in higher gear because it's limited to 2 minutes. But I never, I try to never stop or end that message without at some point in that message saying, parents, please thank our teachers and our staff and our schools for their continued hard work, or something to that effect. So publicly acknowledging them. We were fortunate last year to be recognized. We had level 5s in our growth scores in all 24 areas of accountability. And we actually made a decision. We have some line item for advertisements and those things in the budget. And we made a decision. We put 2 billboards, one in the north end of the county, one in the south, just to say, congratulations, thank you, teachers, staff. I don't remember exactly what the billboard said. There were a few in the community that didn't think that was a wise choice of money. But I thought it was an excellent choice of money, and I'll defend that to let the good news of our teachers and staff get out there. Because like we said earlier, years ago, I think the medical world and the teaching profession were considered very respected, revered positions and professions, and we want to make sure that teachers stay highly thought of. Now, again, some teachers make poor choices, and from time to time we have to deal with that. I'm not afraid to deal with that, but as long as they're in there doing what they've been charged to do, teach state standards and care about kids, we want to along their efforts. We also worked hard to increase teacher pay. We were at the state minimum, $36,000. We moved to $40,000 last year at the state minimum. And if all goes well with the approval of the budget coming up in coming weeks, we're going to move that another $1,200 this year to $41,200. And then we changed the pay scale to where, and I worked with the local teacher association on that. JCA president at the time was involved in that. And then currently working with the new president, and one of my supervisors will be the liaison as they go into collaborative conferencing. But one of the things we did, year 22, teachers topped out, and by changing the pay scale, we moved from years to steps to where you move each year. The board can move you, but then you also can move based on your observation score. But it gave veteran teachers, instead of topping out, it gave them the ability to keep going. And I wouldn't misquote or mislead you in this world. We moved dozens of steps up the TEA rankings in some of their categories. And I even talked to them the other day because, it may say where we rank with the bachelor's and step 10. Well, their step 10 is really year 10. But our year 10, you might be on step 30. So I've asked them at least put an asterisk there to say we're not comparing apples to oranges. But we wanted to recruit teachers. We wanted to retain teachers. We worked hard to do that. And then all employees. You know, we always try to stress to principals, make sure you're including all the employees at the building level in your initiatives. Little small things over fall break. Our assistant superintendent, who's going to be the next superintendent there, we make sure he huddled the maintenance men up, and I think he grilled him a hamburger one day. And just those small things go a long way, just to say. And I told him I wasn't paying for it; he could eat that one. But anyway, no, I'm just teasing. But we also moved the classified pay. Last year, you know, we were up to $12 a year, and again, an hour per se. And if this year the budget goes through, we're moving that to $12.35. Again, it's not as high as some districts, but we're doing all we can with what we have to let them know you matter and you are appreciated and valued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this criterion speaks and writes effectively to communicate the successes as well as the needs of the school system. What evidence can you cite to demonstrate you are an effective communicator?
Well, I don't brag on me, so I'll say this though. I think it starts here in this room. I try to keep the board very involved. Everything from a weekly, I would like to say it's every Monday morning before 8, but sometimes it's Monday afternoon, Tuesday. But as a general rule, you get a week at a glance, is what I call it. It's major highlights from each department, things going on that week. It may include things at schools, to where if you want to, you know, visit a school for an assembly or those things. But we communicate with the board. And we work hard to do that, to keep them apprised. Because I don't like to go to Walmart and say, I can't believe it. Somebody say to me, I can't believe that happened over there at ABC school. And I can't either. I've not heard about that. So I want the principals to keep me informed. And then I want you not to get blindsided again with that information. To the point today, during the day, if there was an ambulance or something called to one of our schools, I would text the board and say, if you hear an ambulance has been to a school today, it's a medical emergency of a student, or it's an accident in the PE, and then I'll say I'll give you more information as we have it, just so you're aware. So we try to communicate with the board. I prepare a director's report each board meeting, and it's some of it's just announcements and those things. Some of it would be more on the lines of things that I would ask that we talk about. And again, once I'm familiar with how this board would want to function in that relationship, I would adjust to that, but I communicate with the board. Secondly, we communicate with our principals and our administrators. We have principal meetings. We follow up after a principal meeting. Sometimes we think we've said one thing, we'll go and hear that Principal A has heard it a different way, or they may call to clarify the question. So I make sure the supervisors and I are all on the same page, that what we said is what we meant. I tell my kids, my own personal kids all the time, say what you mean and mean what you say. So we make sure that we try to break that down into clear messages for them, and then we follow up to make sure they're. And then with parents, obviously schools have the primary day-to-day interaction with parents and those things. Certainly during COVID, we started a weekly phone call. It's on Tuesday nights. We put out an FAQ for parents on if anything had changed in protocols or if anything had changed. We posted numbers on our webpage of active cases of kids, students, and active cases of our staff members. We use social media to try to get the word out about, we have a Twitter page and a Facebook page, those type of things. And those aren't necessarily for great dialogue. They're just used to post announcements and those kind of things that go out so parents can be involved. But we also try to stress that not everybody is on social media. While a good many people are, how are we making sure we don't leave out the people that aren't? Not all families have that. And in rural settings, sometimes not all families even have a cell signal or they have internet. So we try hard to use traditional means to communicate with people in lots of ways. Again, teachers and staff have open email to me. That's easy. And we are try to be very attentive to them and answer them back. And just being personally visible and accountable myself to be communicating. But, you know, I address the staff beginning of the year, have in Jefferson County, and make sure they know. They can email or call anytime if they've got a question, a comment, a concern, a complaint, a disagreement with disgruntlement or frustration.
Thank you, sir. What have you done to help the public understand the needs and success of your school system?
One, I think those parent calls again. Two is being very visible, whether that's at a high school football game or whether that's at the fifth grade, beginning band concert. But those phone calls help a great deal. One of the things that has come back to our office feedback-wise is when some of that hype was at its height, was we appreciate that you frequently let us know what's going on. I would call on Tuesday, even if there wasn't really much update to give, just so they could hear a voice. They needed to know that we were still on the scene, we're still taking things serious, we're still working hard to keep everybody safe. Another thing is I started with one of the, and I would do it with anyone. If I had to go over, I probably would have done it in-house and then just filtered it out. But one of our local media outlets asked, are you willing to do a video? And so they would come and sit down with a camera 3 feet from me, and I would do a video once a week, every other week, really just with major changes more for that. Now we've got where we do it about once a month, and it's just generic right now, when things are calm. But I talked to them Thursday last week. We're going to do one in the coming days, because here we are in the last few days of school, 27 student days, counting at home, left in this school year, and that way parents will know, you're going to be having assemblies. Don't forget this is the last day of school. This Friday there's no school, and those kind of things. So we try to do that. We also work hard. We have an ESL coordinator, so anytime we put out a phone call, she translates that phone call and puts that out for families that she has a roster of that needs that in a different language. And then we also post a script, many times, it depends on the phone call, but most times we post that script online. So that if you missed a call or you didn't get it or your phone was breaking up and then recorded the voicemail but you couldn't hear, you can click on that social media page and read the script of what I just read to them and those kind of things. So we want to continue to do that so the public understands the needs, develop good relationship with media. And I always like to do that. There's lots of good things going on in schools. We've asked our teachers, principals to make sure that they are pumping that information out. We want to celebrate. We want to celebrate our kids. We want to celebrate our teachers. There is a lot good going on, but if we fail to tell all that good that's going on, a lot of times the public only hears when we have an uh-oh. And then because they're going to have to know about those kind of things. So those frequently asked questions help in COVID a lot. Reopening the school each year has some different twists, and certainly in the last 2 years it's been very much so. So again, we just continue to try to keep the public aware of what's going on and then develop relationships. I can call our local paper, our online paper, and then we also try to be excellent. When I've asked schools to send out media releases, when I first arrived, they would send it to just one. Now that's different if a media outlet wants to do an exclusive on the 5th grade trip at so-and-so. But if it's just a general school announcement, I've asked them to send it. It goes to our online paper in the county, the print paper in the county, the print paper in Johnston that also delivers in our county quite a bit, the local radio station, our social media pages, and our webpage. So we try our best to get the word out as much as we can. And oftentimes we will ask principals to make sure they're talking to parents and say to the effect of, hey, if you're not getting the calls, let us know. Because sometimes cell phones die, sometimes cell phones numbers get changed and those kind of things.
Thank you.
If I could just say one more thing.
Yeah.
There's also membership, Jefferson County Health Board. I'm on that health board, which that ended up being who knew going in 2018 when I was asked to be part of that, how big that was going to be. But civic organizations, again, I spoke at some luncheons and those kind of things. Member of the chamber has a relationship with us, and again, we were involved in various things. So we try to keep public engaged by being visible, listening, and being part. Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
It's okay.
Well, now we're in criteria number 4, which fosters support, confidence, and pride within the community for the school system through timely information sharing and providing meaningful opportunities to be involved. So the first question would be, what have you done to create excitement and generate support for public schools?
I think be a cheerleader. And I think the greatest way to do that is support our teachers, our administrators, our schools. And I don't mean a cheerleader in a corny sense of being fake or anything like that. Just simply be there. We all want all of our children educated. I also respect the fact that some parents make choices to not send them to our schools. And we're here to support the ones that come our way, and we're going to do everything we can do to make them successful. Again, publicly recognizing our teachers. A lot of answers have carryover, I think. active at the community events and all those kind of things. But we want to utilize the media. We want to utilize our social media sites and all those kind of things. And then you can put out those, just like, I've not done this in Jefferson County, and again, some of the things that you might have thought you were going to do in 2018 got kind of sideways there about March 20 of 2020, and those kind of things. But you also have the ability to put out parent newsletters, but, newsletters anymore largely would be in a social media type platform and frequent those announcements and videos. We have even learned with our teachers and staff, a short, concise video, it gets a lot of hits, and whether that's a supervisor doing one for teachers on, hey, this training's coming up in the summer, everybody has to take it, and some of this, talking about this coming summer, some of the things the state has coming up, and teachers, I think, get a little more out of that video, seeing the face, and talking to you. You can, now I have a face for radio, but I mean, seeing a video sometimes helps them understand better. And we all learn a little bit. Some people like it in writing, some people like it a video, some people like it in different ways. So we have to just continue to generate excitement. Part of that is we need to not brag in a selfish way or an inappropriate way, but we need to celebrate when the kids do great things. And sometimes that's not always in the state standards. Sometimes I think different communities see from time to time that young people doing exciting things or being involved in their local volunteer fire department or doing something great or being a good citizen. So at the end of the day, that's what we're for too. Because I can assure you, as a dad of a 17-year-old daughter that's about to go to college, when she brings some young man home, I'm probably not going to ask his ACT score. What I am going to ask is some intangibles. What's he believe in? Does he work hard? What's he, is he a good gentleman? Those kind of things. And that's what we're trying to do too, is make sure we're coming alongside parents and supporting them in their efforts to raise their children. So I just think we have to advocate for all the good that's going on, because a lot more good's going on than gets told sometimes. And that's our fault for not always celebrating.
Okay, the second question, how have you worked within a community to generate support for the school system?
2 or 3 things. I don't know if college and universities anymore is very important, and they're very attentive right now. We went to a job fair at the University of Tennessee the other day, and there were only 30 kids that came through that are in the seniors in the education department. So, that's why another reason we need to be recruiting and retaining and those things. But we want to build partnerships with those colleges, those universities. We want to make sure that we are working with them. TCAT would be another one. That we work within the community to build those relationships. Again, we want students to have opportunity. I want a child to have the opportunity to go to 4-year school if that's what that child wants to do, but we've got to get their ACT score there to where they're eligible to do that. Now, if they don't want to go and they have, and that's fine, but I don't want them to be said that they couldn't go because they didn't have, they never got their ACT score. They want to have that choice and ability to be able to go. So we develop relationships with our colleges, universities, our business partners, I think are important. One of the things that we did is we developed a relationship with a gentleman out of Knoxville that works on our partners in education. And a lot of times there's, lots of businesses, small businesses, mom and pop businesses, all the way up to big corporations. They would be involved with the school if they just had a way in or somebody asked them to be. So we're trying to develop relationships in the community with our business partners for 2 reasons, really. One, in some cases, we may ask a business owner, if we have a situation where we can place a child and get work experience, would you be willing to host that? And then sometimes it could just be that we're saying, hey, from time to time, this small school, this elementary school, this middle school, this high school, whatever the case may be, has a need. They may be going to do a parent night, but they need you to help sponsor the chili dogs and the supper. And so it's not only the work placement, it could just be some financial donations. And again, some businesses do, what we've learned is some businesses do their budget once a year. And if they just will know we're there, they may say this year, we can't really help you this year. But now that we know there's a need, we'll put you in our budget for $100 next year. And $100 doesn't sound like when you're dealing with $100 million of money, but when you try and do something at the school level and you get 10 partners at $100, now all of a sudden that event is sponsored and you can do those kind of things. And then I think it's also that you want to make sure that parents are involved in that. And again, open to parents at ball games, at school events, all the things we've already said, to where people see you and get to know you and those kind of things. And at least feel like, hey, I can pick up on a call or I can email and he'll at least listen.
And number 3, We expect our director of schools to be active and visible in our community. How would you go about accomplishing this in Blount County?
Well, I have 3 kids, and they're pretty active, so, my wife needs really an assistant to help get them everything. So we're out and about in communities and those things. I think, again, ball games, school events, civic organizations, all the things we've said before, speaking engagements, but you're out and about. And even sometimes that's just getting to know people when you go and sit down at a lunch and just saying hi to those type of people. So again, it has to be intentional. You don't usually lock yourself in your office and hope people swing through. What you do is you have to strategically plan to be out and about. I would lean heavily on the relationships that already exist with the district and business partners, community partners, reach out to them and try to make sure they know, should this all come to pass, I'm the new director of schools, and we've always valued the relationship that Blount County Schools have with you, and I look forward to continuing that relationship. Do you have time for a phone call? Would you like to talk, meet one day, whatever the case may be? But you continue to do that. And I think when you have a genuine concern for people's kids, again, they may not always agree with the decision you make, but when they see you genuinely care about the kids, I think that goes a long ways in knowing and helping promote the mission of the school system, which is to help every child.
Okay. Time out a minute. We have been flying along. You want to get a drink of water or anything, or breathe?
Let's have a
Yeah.
And we're good on time, so,
I'm at the
Okay.
pleasure of the board.
okay.
I thought we would do it after yours.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
great.
That was closer to 10.
All righty, good,
Okay.
good. Criterion 5 has to do with your experience in working with students, parents, staff, the community, and the school board in developing long-range goals and strategies for the school system and the determination and ability to accomplish those strategies and goals. So the question number 1 is, how have you used planning and goal setting to improve your school or school system?
There was a bookkeeper in one of the first schools I worked in that said, lack of planning on your part does not create an emergency on mine. And so I do tend to plan. I'm detail oriented. But I think the first thing is you have to see where you are. I think you have to know where you are, because then you can see where you've been. And then when you know where you are and you've seen where you've been, then you can say, now where do we want to get to? And then you bring in stakeholders and you bring in folks. Nobody likes to have something just rolled out. I know you all heard about the new funding formula at the state, and whether you're for or against or concerned or want to know more, wherever we are in the spectrum of things. Again, nobody likes an idea as a principal. When you spend all summer thinking this is going to be a great initiative of this school year, and you roll it out and all the teachers look at you like you've grown an extra head. That's deflating. So you involve those stakeholders in the development of the plan along the way to attack that. When we began this process really 2 years ago, coming out of, in COVID and then coming out of COVID, we started talking at the grassroots level in our buildings. We talked to instructional supervisors, we talked to some district-wide coaches, we talked to the principals. They started having staff meetings or grade level meetings from 3rd grade, 5th grade. Our central office supervisors would be in buildings to say, here's what we're seeing the data looks like, and those kind of things. And then that's where we developed that. Here's where we think we can be. And we had some principals like anybody, we're all competitors. We want to win. And we had some principals say, no, I think we can go 11 points up this year. And we have a great data guy, and I'm sure you all have great data specialists too, but he would just look at them and say, that's unrealistic, and what you're setting your building up to do is really demoralized when that doesn't happen. So one of the things that we did was we came up with, now, look, here's our goal, and we think we can get there. And it was what we call a stretch goal. It wasn't the minimum just so we could pat ourselves on the back. We pushing ourselves hard, but we set that 4- and 5-year goal to be there. But they're realistic, but that doesn't mean they're easy. We've still got to work to get there. But then it took buy-in. And even with that, then it started, the school year started. We had pacing guides in Jefferson County for years. And I told all the teachers, and any teachers that I've had a chance to talk to, I said, everybody around the state stole your pacing guides for years. But guess what? There hadn't been all the levels of accountability there might need to be in every building. One teacher literally told me, we've always had those pacing guides, but y'all are expecting us to use them this year. And I said, how about that? And, those kind of things. So we got those common pacing guides in to where, within, we're not talking about, we're not so dogmatic that everybody on Tuesday, you can't afford for a teacher to be out for a bereavement or sick or personal day or those things. but it has a range in there that way, because we do have great fluidity. We have a second grader that may be in 3 different schools this year, and they should, we want them to be basically at the same place. And we worked hard to develop common planning district-wide, and we would have never done that 3 years ago, but that's one positive thing. We learned this thing called Zoom and Team and all those kind of things, but every other week, our elementary, again, in August, September, there was some moans and groans, but you ought to see the testimonies now that's coming from teachers where second grade teachers, it's not just second grade, that's just whatever reason I'm using for the illustration today, the second grade teachers all log in at the same time every other week for 30 minutes. And they share out, or one of the supervisors or one of the teachers may have something, hey, this is something I did this weekend where it's planned. And now they're like, this has been so helpful to know that across the county, that teacher's using that strategy and those things. So again, that just comes from everybody working together, pulling the wagon in the same direction. We have been working, and now we've got those long-range goals out there 4 or 5 years, and we think we'll be, knocking the top out of that, reaching those goals and beyond if we just keep pressing along and encouraging and supporting, and people do get discouraged along the way, I've got a treadmill, and occasionally I turn it on. And that's kind of how teachers are sometimes. It's hard, but you got to keep encouraging. My wife sometimes encourages me to get on that thing too. But anyways, you understand what we're saying. So we want to make sure that we come alongside and support them so they can get there.
And this next question continues to hit on that. How did you obtain the support of the students, parents, staff, community, and the school board in the developments and implementation of your plans?
I think first, being visible. Second, I think, is transparency. It's an old country saying that somebody told me when I first became principal, said from time to time you're going to have to eat crow, but it goes down better when it's warm. So, when scores came out, we weren't happy with it. We were happy that we didn't fall as much as the state did, those kind of things. We were happy that we had great growth scores. But for years, I think many districts in the state only hung their hat on growth scores, and achievement scores matter too. They both, are very important. So what we did was we just said, here's where we are, and then let's roll our sleeves up and get to work with our principals. And we've had several retirees, some of the people we mentioned before the meeting started, those things. So all of my supervisors, all of a sudden, somehow this happened. I became the oldest one at central office and supervisors. And I think one person may have me about 2 months or so. But anyways, that happened. But our supervisors are energetic, they're very intelligent, and they're committed to the students, the communities, and they have a wide range of talents. And as they have that right there, they were able then to go back. They have that street credibility of being in the district and having the buy-in of the teachers and staff, and they've been there. They've been administrators, they've been classroom teachers, all those things. I've been a classroom teacher and coach, and then I've worked as assistant principal, and supervisor and all that. So we've been there. We try to never forget what it's like day in and day out to go in and see those kids in that classroom and the hard work that takes. But we were transparent. Here's where we are. And we can wallow in that, so to speak, or the other part is we could celebrate, really to over-celebrate, because while we didn't fall as much as others, we were excited. We just set a chart to get where we're going. This is where we are. And, so now we got to set a path to get there. And then we communicated that, to parents, to everyone else, here's where we are. With this third grade retention law that we're all staring down facing coming up, we're going to send a letter here at the last quarter, even to second graders, with their last report card at the end of the year. Again, this is just talking about how we're selling the plan, keeping parents involved. And we're going to say next year it is imperative to work with your child's teacher, because this law may impact your child in third grade. Some of the teachers, and we asked them, if we left it up to them optional, but we might have encouraged, in quotes, the principal, if we had current third grade kids this year, that this law would have impacted this year if it was in effect. Those parents need to be encouraged that this law, had it been in effect this year, your child would be looking at having to repeat or go to summer school. So please stay engaged and plugged into your child's teacher and those kind of things. We try to involve the JCA. We have a good relationship with the local teachers association, so that sometimes they hear rumors. We're never at a shortage for rumors in the world anymore. So if you hear a rumor, we keep them plugged in on what's quote unquote really been said, as we mentioned earlier, and then we monitor the plan. We're not so committed to being following that we don't adjust as it needs adjust. If we have to adjust and move it left, right, up, down, whatever, you know, we don't mind saying, hey, we need to adjust that. It's not about us being quote unquote right, it's about us helping kids and teachers. And I think COVID proved that as well. You know, we, like I said a minute ago, health department and medical officials. I never dreamed I'd be in a room with health department and local pediatrician groups and everything else trying to figure out how to have schools. But it was good to have those partnerships, and then everybody again can see your genuine concern for everybody's health and safety, but at the same time, the academic progress was a great concern to all of us. So we have great relationships with our law enforcement. The sheriff and I have a great relationship, city police department for our safety and security teams, and all those things go together to help us get those people involved to help the plan, whatever the plan is or the initiative is. We all work together. I'm all about a team.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's take a break, okay? Probably
Stand
back
up.
around 10,
Yeah, sure.
10 or 10, 15, something like that.
Yeah, let's
Back around here.
stretch your legs. Stretch your legs.
Anybody here, there's drinks and stuff over here if anybody wants.
Well, 2 or 3 examples that I'd like to share. One is, again, we realize that we're losing some good people to neighboring districts that can just simply pay better. So we wanted to address the pay scale. We implemented that change. That was a little concerning to some because they'd always been traditionally getting a raise every year. They'd moved down on a raise every year. And so what we replaced that with was that we went to a 90-step system. In that 90-step system, you move 1 step if your observation score is 3, 2 steps if it's 4, 3 steps if it's 5, and each step's $300 apart. So probably in that example, if I had it to do over, we would have communicated better to say that may not be all you move, because each year, as you all know, and under the BEP, and I know we've got pending change coming, you know, you have to raise teacher salaries X amount in that BEP formula as well. So like some years, it could be the board says we're moving everybody to, but then you have the ability to move. But the point is, we adjusted the pay scale. We moved again from $36,000 to $40,000 for beginning teacher pay, hoping to go to $41,200 this coming Thursday if the budget gets approved by the board and on the county commission. And then we increased down through step 90. That's just huge for veteran teachers that are thinking, you know, really I can make just as much money pulling my retirement if they can continue to work, and we need them. You know, state legislation right now is also looking at a bill that would allow retired teachers to come back and teach up to 70% of their pay. So, I mean, there's a teacher shortage everywhere, so we need to take care of our employees anyway. That's the right thing to do, is take care of our people. So, again, I went to the JCA president at the time, was a teacher of one of our elementary schools, asked her if I could come and talk to her on our planning period. I sat down with her first. I said, you're going to get lots of questions. I said, this may not be perfect, but I can assure you my heart's in the right place. I'm trying to help teachers. And she looked at it, she thought it was fine and appreciated it, and we presented that. So, again, there was a little bit of angst, I guess you would say, on the front end by a handful that thought that were concerned that they wouldn't get a raise just because they, you know, survived another year, lived another year, advanced another year, however you want to say that. So we looked at that. You know, I think also a change was when we implemented that welding program. That welding program, we saw a need. We studied that. We saw a need right there in the community. Our welding teacher, actually, we pay him to plan after school, and he teaches 4 blocks. And like I said, we could add another welding teacher if we had 16 more welding booths right now. We're about to add culinary arts again as well. And then the other part of that tied in kind of the pay scale was the evaluation system. We moved to what I think is more efficient and really more helpful. As a former coach, I guess it's just in me. I believe you coach people up. You know, I pick teams. Again, I might have an illustration or two along the way, but my first high school basketball team I picked, I was so proud. And it was boys, and the girls coach walked through, and I said, "Hey, coach, what do you think?" And he said, "You better re-choose." And you know, I was proud, thought we had the best team in the world, but that was the best 15 kids in the school, so guess what? We just had to coach them up. And I think that's how we are with teachers. So our district currently is a project coach district, just like Blount County is. I'm familiar with that system, and familiar with the people that use that platform of T-Eval and Project Coach. I think that is very effective under the research of Kim Marshall, where you do all the mini observations. It gives you flexibility. It also gives you real-time view of what's going on in the classroom rather than having a set time, and say, because all those observations are unannounced. and you go in and you get to see what really goes on over the course of a whole year. You're in there multiple times and those things. But that was a change that we implemented. And I even asked the director that's going to be taking my place in Jefferson County the other day, I said, you're going to need to make a decision if you want to stay with that or go back to team or one of the other state models. And he said, you know, the administrators would revolt on me if I tried to take it back. He said, that's the best, because he was a principal when we first implemented that. And he said, that's the best thing since sliced bread, because it helps get a truer picture of what's going on in classrooms, and that feedback and that coaching that you provide really helps. So all of those are just little examples of changes that we've implemented. But, you know, again, I don't think you change just to be changing. I think that sends fear and through everybody. Matter of fact, sometimes we don't use the C word. We say transform instead of change, just to keep panic down a little bit.
How did you keep up with research and initiatives that may drive change?
I think there's relationships are involved in all levels of this. One, TOS and TSBA are two great resources anymore. I mean, they're involved right now in this legislative session. Now, we get end of week summaries from both those people. We also have a network in the east region of superintendents. All the superintendents in the state are divided up into networks. And we meet once a month as east superintendents to talk about issues. We have an agenda. It's a meeting that we go through to stay abreast of that. TOS also has what's called the SLI, the Superintendent Leadership Institute, and the ALI for the Assistant Superintendents and Supervisors. And for like $150 a month added to your membership, you have opportunities that I couldn't begin to tell you how many different opportunities for training. And it's from people in the trenches. So if it's a legal issue, they may have Chuck Cagle, who's the staff attorney for TOS, leading that. And again, Ben Torres and TSBA provides great PD, Jennifer White, Emily Warren, all those folks at TSBA. So really, you have that at your hands. That keeps you from having to go, you know, out. And of course, you still have individual reading. You have internet access to things. And despite what that old commercial used to say, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. So, you know, it's good to vet those things out through TOS, TSBA, and then here close, fairly close to where we are, but a little closer to where I currently am in Jefferson County, the first district of superintendents meets. The first one is that Upper East Tennessee group, and through the Niswonger Foundation, they also have legislative liaisons, and we work with them, and then also on educational issues. And matter of fact, they would include us. We use some of their people for some additional things. They actually take on staff members, and they pay them for a year or two. They pay their salary, but we basically loan them to them, and they are using it in coaching and teaching them how to be great instructional coaches and come back. But they also have PD and other opportunities. So it's all about a network of folks you trust and you want to lean on. And again, with technology, it's so easy. You know, I have a network of people that I trust, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here, but Rob Brett was one of those people that I would text and call and say, I need your thoughts on this, or I've got this going on, as I would others. Danny Weeks over in Dixon County, Dale Lynch, who's now the executive director of TOS, and he used to be in Hamlin County. And certainly 4 years ago, when you're a rookie, you walk in, I was at least hoping it would be the second or third week before we had a question I couldn't answer, but it was July 2nd, I think. And we, so, you know, to have those people on speed dial that you can help, because nothing replaces experience. And those people were wise and very generous. So we do that. And then I stay up to speed too, because I stay plugged into the new superintendents. TOS has asked me, and I appreciate their doing that. The last 3 years I've served as kind of a table facilitator when they have new superintendents. I've served as a table facilitator discussions. They bring the new superintendents together. So I'm able to hear what questions they have, and then sometimes I'm able to go back and help those brand new superintendents. So it's always learning, and we've had plenty of learning opportunities in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I'm up again. Sticking out is successful experience in strategic planning, instruction, and curriculum development. So question number 1 is, tell us of 3 curricular or instructional improvements that occurred as a result of your leadership, and what evidence do you have that they were instructional improvements?
I think, first of all, let me say it's a we. Again, it might have happened while I was the director, but it takes a whole team. We implemented several things. One, this common planning time that we talked about has been a great success. And now you have teacher buy-in. And once you get teacher buy-in on that, it will self-perpetuate, going forward to see good results. I've learned this over the years in school, and to be honest, I learned it in church too. Stopping something is sometimes harder than starting it.
Right.
You can start something and then where's the off ramp? And so you got to be able also to assess, is this getting the bang for the buck? And certainly when you're talking about resources and taxpayer money, if you need to change, you need to change. So that planning and that common scheduling, all of our schools, and I'm not saying you do this everywhere you go. I don't think it's kind of like the church that bought a van because the church down the road bought a van, but that church had drivers and you didn't, but you bought a van. You don't do something just because it works somewhere else. But we have all of our schools. Our middle schools are on the same bell schedule. Again, for common planning and different things. I mean, within a minute or two, but they have the same basic schedule. Our elementary schools have the same schedule for all of those purposes. That common planning has helped collaboration among the district. It's helped us be able to help when they're following those pacing guides, and we know where they need additional support and resources. And then also, we made an investment, and not necessarily a financial investment, but a commitment might be a better word. So number 2 would be high-quality instructional materials. What we were finding was a lot of teachers were going online and finding things that weren't effective or maybe not best practice. And again, it's great to be a scavenger and go find resources, but at the same time, it needs to fit into your vision, your model. So we made an investment and a commitment that all of our teachers were going to have what they needed with high-quality instructional materials. I think you also get, and we'll probably mention this word later, but sometimes teachers are teaching the standard, but not at the rigor that it needs to be taught and those kind of things. So we're having this network of coaches and support and instructional help and everybody helping each other. We're gleaning from each other. So the high-quality instructional materials, the common scheduling and planning, and then also accountability of the pacing guides. Having a pacing guide and using a pacing guide are two different things. I've got copies of lots of diets, but I don't always follow them. And like I should, I'll just say it like that. And the curriculum coaching, I think. I know there's probably multiple times y'all have said, give me an example or 3 examples, and I just talk. I don't know. Sorry about that.
That's good.
But anyway, so, we also use those curriculum coaching to help move towards balanced assessments to where our folks are taking the same tests. So if we're using the same pacing guide, we have the same high-quality instructional materials, and we have the same assessment tool, we ought to be able to really compare where we are and be able to use that data then to help our teachers and help our kids even more.
Now we're going to switch to thinking about the district's strategic plan. Describe your involvement in the development of the school district strategic plan. How did you build support to accomplish the goals and objectives of the plan?
One of the things that we transitioned was when I first got there, it was in my contract that I would present a strategic plan to the board by June 30th. And then you had also the Informed TN, the state platform and model that has to be due March 1st that we have to do. And then the board, working with TSBA, was having it. So it's taken some time. COVID interrupted, but we have now gelled that into one plan. So what we submit to the state on March 1 is really the board's plan as well. And we then take, I'll say, more educational type terms and make it more parent-friendly, more student-friendly, and turn that into a simplified version, a more user-friendly word on that strategic plan. And it's all around the data, and it's all around specific target and measurable objectives that we feel like that need to be addressed. We evaluate that data and do that. And then what the board ended up doing last year was saying, here's our now 5-year strategic plan and our 5-year capital plan. So we just took and we made it fit this time in the state strategic plan, which have academics, educators, and student readiness. And that's what we use as our broad topics, and we put our goals and what we're going to do under those. But, it's not, we just decided it's not good to have a 22-page document that nobody knows what it says. It is shorter, it is more precise and concise, but it's actionable. We're going to do this year, and then we're going to evaluate it, and we'll adjust next year if we need to. And then the board added their capital projects as the last part of that.
So just to clarify, there's one plan pinned to the state strategic plan. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. And then finally, this is one we particularly added because this is a big concern to all of us. Please describe your experience in interpreting and analyzing relevant student assessment data.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things there is, we need to always continue to learn and grow. and it's not just me, I don't need to understand data, our whole team does. And what we've really worked hard to do, as a principal, it's first started 10, 12, 15 years ago, however many years ago that seems, but you know, looking at individual data. We want to get the data down beyond this is a school data. We want to get it down beyond this is a teacher's data. We want to get it down to how Scooter and Skippy are doing. We want to get it down to that individual student. And with tools like iReady and those kind of things, we're able to have targeted goals and focused individual help for kids. They have a thing called My Pathway, I believe is the name of it, for kids. And we've found a sweet spot there in working with the folks at Curriculum Associates and iReady. You know, some parents would say, I'm gonna put my kid on that from 6 to 9 every night. Well, really what we found is there's a sweet spot of 30 to 40 minutes that you maximize time, and we have time where kids can get on that, and it helps them individually, where I may need help with this skill, you may need help with this other skill, and it helps them with that. So we look at that data down to the student level as well. And of course, like we said earlier, achievement scores matter, growth scores matter. We want to celebrate growth, because if you still take the kid from here and that child grows a year's worth of growth, that's great. And if they've grown more than that, that's even better. But we still want to address those achievement scores. So we look at it from district standpoint, but then we also break that down by school, all the way down to the teacher, and now we're to the point that principals, because we have to train in that. Not everybody. You don't just walk in and say, I'm good at data and those kind of things. So now our principals are able, though, to have conversations, and we were talking about this in our DLT meeting a week or so ago. We're having conversations with principals that they weren't able to have in August, just where they've grown. Again, that's not a criticism. They just weren't exposed to that. Now they've learned the platform of iReady, but now they in turn can go to the individual classroom and say, let's look at your second grade class. Looks like Billy's doing great, but you know, Stephanie needs a little extra help here, or Billy still can strengthen these skills and jump even more. So we use that data every day to try to help kids. Again, kids are more than numbers. We use the numbers to help the kids be successful.
Okay, good, thank you.
You gonna be able to live over?
Yeah. The joys of living in East Tennessee in the spring.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries.
I've got a cough drop, so if I sound funny, I apologize for that as well. Experience as a teacher who understands the day-to-day operations of the classroom and has sound knowledge of instruction, curriculum, and educational programs is this criteria number 8. Discuss your level of expertise in elementary and/or secondary curriculum and instruction. Describe where you gained this experience.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, you know, I walked into an elementary school as an assistant principal, and I was a secondary major. So the learning curve was large. But I think it was very transparent that there were also experts in the building. It's called those classroom teachers that have been doing that a long time. So I was just transparent and sat down and said, again, some of the same things we talked about. Here's where I see us going as a school. Now tell me, from a curriculum standpoint, why those things are challenges that you want to face, what do I need to do to support you, and some of those kind of things. And it was through those discussions, again, we departmentalized a couple. One of the reasons was we had the ability to use a software program that could help some of our kids, and we were all over the place. So nothing replaces just knowledge of where you've been. So just starting at ground zero with the curriculum. Again, I think you start learning things over the years like that difference. And you may be teaching the standard, but not at the depth it needs to be taught, not at the rigor it needs to be taught, ways that you can support people. And again, I often refer to our teachers, you are the experts in the classroom, you are the experts in the building, but I want to help you be successful. How can I help you do that? So even with such things, I know you've heard of RTI. Before RTI was, it's still quote unquote recommended but from the state, but it's maybe strongly recommended. But even before that, the principal that I was working for said, this thing called RTI is coming. And I want us to look at that. We implemented RTI by working with teachers and realizing we're going to pull this set of kids to get this additional support, and this group's going to get enrichment, and this group's going to get additional skill development, and this group's going to get standards and those things. So really, it's just exposing yourself, and it's a blend of expose yourself to what the standards are with the best practices. And then the secondary, I think one of the things that's key is, what's a good way to say this? I think you have to remind all some secondary teachers from time to time, we're still teaching kids. while we are teaching content, and by that, while you're teaching chemistry or biology or something, we're still teaching kids, and we need to meet those kids where we are. So again, it's ongoing work with all those people involved. It comes through planning, it comes through organization. As the standards change, you remember about 10 or 12 years ago, the standards changed. You had teachers that had always taught a certain standard, but all of a sudden it went to the other grade, and it was really difficult for them to not say, I've always taught that standard. So, being familiar with standards and then best practices, and then you come alongside teachers, because our teachers truly are the experts. If you have some that are not traveling down the right path, that's a little different where you pull them, and the greatest resource I think you have there, certainly from my chair, I can't get in every classroom, and the instructional supervisors may not be able to put hands on, but it's making sure we are training people along the way. We're all growing together. I'm growing, they're growing, principals are growing, building level instructional coaches are growing, but peers can go a long way. You give a good peer mentor to a teacher that needs additional support, and they both are receptive to that, and that helps. And I'm thankful for those teachers that came under, that put me under their wing my first year or two in the classroom and said, I want to help him be successful.
And question number 2, describe your experience in developing, implementing, and/or evaluating an instructional program that has improved the educational achievement of students.
So I think you should go back and look at your principal and as your supervisor, I think you have to be respectful of what we mentioned there a minute ago. It is the classroom that they've been entrusted with, and we do need to treat them as experts. We're not, there's angst a little bit among some anymore that teachers are losing their autonomy in the classroom. So I think it's important by state law that we remind everyone, we're teaching the state standards, but inside of those teaching the state standards is where the art of teaching happens, because some teachers have different strategies in those kind of things. So when you develop and implement an instructional program, that may be that RTI program that we built from the ground up. Sometimes it may be a summer program that you're putting in place. This is where communication helps, but you're providing the opportunity. You're going to use the test, the scores, the AMOs. You're going to look at all of those things and say, what do we need to implement to address that? I have a simple saying, is it's what's best for kids. And if it's best for kids, then I want us to try to do that. And I know that's this board's heart as well. So sometimes that was developing a schedule for a school system like we did recently, where we've got everybody kind of working together on the commonalities. Again, inside those broad umbrella things, an individual teacher can blossom any way they want to do that. But we had to implement some of those changes, that collaborative planning, that we're really actually going to go by the pacing guides and those kind of things. We give you the umbrella, now go do your trade, you're a master, you're an art of teaching inside that. But you have to develop that. And again, that may come in scheduling, that may come in an implementation program of an extra reading program or something like that. But no greater resource do you have, I think, than highly effective teachers to be there to model that for other teachers. And you teachers are in the trenches right there every day doing that. As a principal, you often have to face, and I guess as a superintendent, you get told from state and others, you have to do this, but there's no resources, and in some cases, not a lot of guidance, but you're expected to get from A to B. So, sometimes those have to be developed on the fly pretty quick, and largely because it helps with the buy-in. You engage and involve the stakeholders in that. You involve the teachers in that to help you get there. How are we going to get there? And pull on their expertise. But you got to balance helping achievement with those student needs as well. If you just say, we're doing this, there's a good chance you've lost your staff before you ever started.
The next area for discussion deals with seeking information relative to problems and making decisions regarding those problems. Think of a problem brought to you recently. What was the problem and how did you handle it?
We don't have problems in Jefferson. Let me go back to 3 years ago, and again, this was one that not everyone, you don't hear everything. Very rarely does everybody have the facts. We had a situation in our athletic department. School was built in 1975, and you didn't have as many athletic teams or events and different things going on. And we had teams having to practice off campus down the road, and in some cases, we found out that they didn't have access to restrooms, they didn't have access to changing areas, and some things were going on there. It's just not good for school safety, school image, it's not good for kids, it's not good for parents. So the board was looking at a way to do that. On top of that, we had a couple of concerns that could have pushed us towards maybe a Title IX concern in some of our facilities, not equitable among male sports and female sports. So we looked at that. There's the problem, is how we're going to address that. And there was a question, are we going to buy additional land that might can adjoin to the school property and those kind of things. And we came up with a plan that we presented to the board. If you put artificial turf down on the game field, then all of a sudden that can be used as a practice field. And then, and so that was one thing. We brought softball up to be equitable with baseball facilities. They had not been able to have a home track meet in a number of years because of the condition of the track and everything. So long story short, and all of that was going on, we also knew out here they were about to do a needs assessment of all the buildings. And we knew that was going to turn up lots of things that needed to be repaired. They did have enough cash on hand, and for $2.4 million, the board chose to turf that field. They also then added a track. They addressed all of those needs. So it avoided the OCR, it avoided the Title IX issue. It provided the additional practice field by, again, making what was normally, you don't go on the field unless it's game day because it messes up and that kind of thing. And I know that's an athletic situation, but anytime you start hearing OCR, Title IX, those are serious concerns and not in the good and safe welfare of our students, and the board worked on that. There were some in the community that were concerned about spending that kind of money on athletics when you knew you had these buildings coming, but not everybody had that information to know that, it's possibly about to be an OCR. We wanted to avoid having OCR violations. We wanted to treat our kids well. So that's one. I would also say that, we have parent concerns. We try to listen and make sure that we follow board policy. We follow board policy. We want the parents to know they're valued when problems come our way. Another problem we had was we were very inefficient in our transportation department and just some things that had gone on. I worked with the transportation supervisor. We're an 81 Act county, and then I worked with the county mayor. The county mayor's office and I have had a great working relationship, as the county finance director has as well. And we actually moved our garage. We own our own buses there, but we moved our mechanics in our garage into one of the county garages and saved some money there for the county. But we developed that partnership. But we addressed that problem by working with our community, working with the county mayor, county commission, the school board to come together, and we put that under that. It's been a cost savings, and it's also turned out much more efficient work. We've been able actually to hire and pay them a little more, so therefore the quality of the work coming out can be a little better sometimes because we're able to hire people. But those are just two examples, one in athletics, one in the operations, because, we'd like everything to be about academics, and academics are of utmost importance, but at the same time, we have to run the operation as well. We have to get kids there, we have to get them home, we have to feed them, and we have to take care of them in all aspects. And I don't mean to say we have to in a negative way, I'm just saying we're charged with that.
Thank you. Tell us about the most important decision you've made in your last or current position. How did you involve the people who would be affected by that decision?
Well, I think we've talked about several of them over the last little bit. I would say, to be honest with you, one of them was the timing of when I told the board I was not going to return. And that genuinely was out of my love and concern for them. I wanted them to have as much time to do whatever they thought was best, because I didn't want my leaving to impact the momentum that's going forward right now. The academic instructional supervisors, that DLT team that we're talking about has done a great job. We're a family. We check on each other's well-being. And when they hurt, I hurt. When I hurt, they hurt. And we've developed that family atmosphere. And that's what. So that's the number one, I would think, in the most recent days. Just a couple of months ago, we've talked about welding. I think that was important to help our community. I continue to work with our CTE coordinator. And back to the question that was asked earlier, suddenly you changed your mind. I thought we needed to add a new program in CTE, and I was already celebrating. I was wondering when we were going to cut the ribbon. And she sat down and said, that's really not what the job market shows for our kids would help. It's a great program. And, so we changed that and didn't implement that. I'm glad we went back and implemented something else. So, you know, those kind of things just continue going. All these academic initiatives that we've talked about, they've all worked together, but at the end of the day, it's best for kids and it helps our employees. I'm all for helping them be successful.
Thank you.
This is criterion 10, proven ability to develop and administer a comprehensive school budget, including allocation of resources, understands federal, state, and local funding issues. Question 1. Explain how you would develop a school system budget and tell us who you would involve and how you would involve them.
Well, I think obviously being a good steward of taxpayer money is a top priority to me. I also grew up in a situation, I know my mom and dad made tough choices and did without, so I could have shoes to play ball or something like that. So I appreciate the situation that families are in, and we don't take making the budget lightly. We also want to make sure teachers have what they need to be successful. One of the first steps I do every year, even if I made the budget last year and I'm making it this year, I still go back and I look for what I call inefficiencies in the budget. If we had money in a line item and clearly we didn't utilize that as much as we thought, or we only used 80% of that, unless there was a strategic reason that needed to remain in there, we look for those inefficiencies because we can use that money somewhere else to help our teachers, and help the kids, and help our administrators. Another thing is we start from the ground up every year. So if I sat down with the elementary supervisor and in her, the budget amount she was allotted last year and the lines that she kind of oversees, we don't start at that number. We start with how much do you need this year? Let's go from the ground up, not just assume you get that, because none of them ever walk in and say, hey, I don't need that money. Can you take some of it back away from me? So we just start. And again, that's not to be, it's just to be a good steward because, you know, and what we have found over the years has been really successful doing it that way. When I first arrived, we had about $900,000 fund balance. We're just shy of $8 million right now, and that does not count the 3%. That gives the board options to address those facility needs, and they've been in discussion over building some new schools. They're going to renovate one out of ESSER funds right now that as a result of that needs assessment, but now they can look at those HVAC issues, roofing issues, and start to do that. And a lot of that is, again, by just changing a philosophy. When I first arrived, and again, I'm not throwing stones at anybody, just a different philosophy. I started getting purchase orders this time of year, in April, May, and June, for things, and I was like, we have 24 days of school left. Why do we need all of that? And they said, we've always kind of spent what we were budgeted this year. And I said, well, let's not do that. Let's, you know, let's not just spend it because it's in our pocket. That's my, so we started making sure that we were doing that and emptying out lines towards the end of the fiscal year, and we would roll that money. Of course, involved in that, in an 81 Act, I would work with the county finance director. I kept, you know, I've been involved in some different situations, different places. The board there largely would let me and the finance director, and I would give them categories. Like this year on February 5th, we had a board retreat on a Saturday, and it was sunny and about 60 that day, so that was really fun to be inside all day for about 7 hours. But I said to the board, what are things that you all would like to see in the budget or has been in the budget and not, and solicited that input from board members. We asked principals, are there things that you need and do not have? And sometimes that's very practical things, but we don't always think of that. And we've adjusted a system kind of this year in the budget because what we did there, or previously had been the case there, was they would allot custodial supplies based on the number of students. But when you added, though, the 9th grade academy a few years ago, you added lots of square footage, but they still had the same number of students. And the high school principal said, I could really use extra custodial supplies, not only for that extra square footage, but also when we have events in our Performing Arts Center, when we have events at the high school, those kind of things. So the restroom and custodial supplies are being used. So we involve our principals. We involve folks in that. We publicize when those budget discussions are being held at the board meeting, the work session, so if any parent wants to come and share those kind of things. But we put together a budget, and each year we've been able to put together, now we were charged to by the county commission. They said they'd like to bring us a balanced budget. But we put together a balanced budget. This coming Thursdays will be a balanced budget, and at the same time, we're looking at each teacher this year able to get somewhere between $1,800 and $2,700 raises, because again, it's not a percent, it's that set amount. We're increasing classified employee pay by 67 cents an hour, and we're bumping the minimum pay. And all of that's in there while we're still meeting what we feel like the academic thing. So that's where we are. We try to align the budget to the strategic plan. We try to make sure that we are spending it where we said we needed it. And I told the county commission, and I can honestly stand before you and tell this as the truth, when I first met them in July of 2018, I said, I'll never lie to you, and I'll never ask for something I don't genuinely think we need. We may not agree on whether we need it, but I won't ask you for something just to be spending money because, again, I know how hard it is on families, and we want to be good stewards of money. And one example of that was at the end of the welding project, we went, like I said, we went halvesies, and then we went back. I returned $50,000 to the county commission that we did not need. But I wanted them to know, I meant what I said, and I would never lie to them. I went in and told my board that they'd given us $50,000 more than we really needed to complete the project. And the board was all in agreement. We went back and gave the county commission and said, here's this, I mean, it was all somewhere on paper, but I said, here's your $50,000 back. Again, because I work hard to earn trust, and I wouldn't lie or mislead anybody for any reason on purpose to cost the board, or the reputation of the school system, or my reputation for that matter. We're going to be transparent and honest.
Thank you. Number 2, what steps would you take to ensure school funds are spent wisely and accounted for properly and in compliance with state and federal mandates?
Sure. Well, our schools, of course, have their own counts, and we make sure we train. Currently, what we do is we bring the auditor in once a year, sometimes twice a year, because like this year, we had some turnover in our bookkeepers, and we got brand new bookkeepers. So we train at the school level. At the district level, they would laugh. There's, some folks, always somebody saying that you're a bad steward, spending or wasting money. And my supervisors say they don't get the Post-it notes back on the purchase orders we get. It says, why are we buying this? What is this for? And sometimes just by asking questions, it may be, 100% legit, but at the same time, it avoids pitfalls or, hey, I think we can do that a different way and not cost that. Just all of us working together. It's not trying to critique, it's not trying to micromanage, but it is being a good steward. So I put my eye, so the joke at central office is bring your own water because he won't buy us one, and that kind of thing. So, but I would rather be seen as a tightwad, so to speak, and be a good steward of money than be seen as just not overseeing it properly. Because again, I take that very serious. So we create that philosophy, and now that was year 1. Now in year 4, I don't maybe get some of the same number of purchase orders that we used to get on some things, because now we've got a shared philosophy of we don't need to buy that right now, and we can do it. Again, clearly I want it heard though. I want teachers and schools to have what they need to have to be successful. But sometimes it's just easier. My son spends my money easier than if he was earning it sometimes, and I think if we're not careful, we get in a habit of that. So I take spending money very seriously.
And for the last question, tell us about your most significant effort to obtain outside funding other than public funds for a project.
So during that athletic project, I'll tell you a success story and a lack of success story. There was a pilot program a few years ago, and I went to them 2 different times and asked if they would help fund. Even though we had the money, I was going to let them pay for it to turf that field during that athletic renovation. We were turned down, and one of the reasons that I found out was there had been a project done inside our system, not done system-wide, but at one of our schools they had already helped with several $100,000 a few years earlier. So that's an example. A good example, though, was what's called Project Diabetes. When we were in the midst of that athletic renovation, one of the things that we did was we had tennis courts. It was part of that. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but we had 4, but we're going to expand it down to 6. That way, when you have a high school or middle school tennis match, because that's the only tennis courts outside of Carson Union that exist in the county, maybe, that are working and are going to be. And that's also, we share it kind of as a public park, even though it's on the campus of our high school when school's not in session. Nowhere was it budgeted for lights. And we were able to go out and solicit funds through a grant that we were able to get brand new lighting for that tennis court, and didn't cost taxpayers a dime through Musco Lighting, about $150,000, $155,000, I think, and that helped. And that was done through, and I've leaned on them heavily through the East Tennessee Developmental District out of Knoxville, their office. you can call them and simply say, hey, we're looking at doing a project of blank, is there anything out there? And they do the research for you and will help you. They actually had another project that we decided to forego a year or so ago on the propane stations for refueling of buses and those kind of things, but the board decided not to, to stick with gas and diesel buses at the current time. But those are examples of how you just gotta, keep, and again, that Scott Bacon with that partner in education relationship, he helps us develop those relationships with businesses. And of course, different communities have different needs and have different levels of interest. Sometimes there's not a lot of interest. And one of the main things we do anytime we deal with a grant, my first question always is it matching? Because sometimes our teachers or somebody may see, you can get $20,000 if you fill this out, but down at the bottom it said, but somebody else is coming up with the other 20. So we always make sure we read the fine print.
A quick, just clarification, what organization did you go to for the turf? Pilot, okay.
Yeah.
And it was, and I looked for an email the other day about that oddly, and I couldn't find it. And then my secretary reminded me it was actually on their webpage, and they had a thing, a template that you filled out.
Okay.
So I quit searching. There might have been some sort of generic reply email, but I actually went to them a couple of times to say, how about that? Would you help us do that? So,
Right.
Thank you. There's, smaller ways. There's all kinds of businesses that help us do little small things at the school level that the schools rely on their partnership.
All right.
Excellent. Word.
Lunchtime?
My congregation now.
We'll get to the restaurant first today.
Thank you all so much for having me today, and I appreciate it. I want you to get to Blount County, whoever's best for Blount County. Wonderful to me, and I appreciate it. Shakes, I thank you for your hospitality, and she's been good to go to relay all the information, and I appreciate everyone here. So thank you so much, and I wish you great things ahead. I know it'll happen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We've got, are they here, the lunch?
They're not here yet, it'll be probably another 15 minutes.
Okay, we got a lunch.
Got a
Like
break?
Hang around and meet everybody, and we'll go through the building.
Thank you all for being here.